In the eerie depths of the Hậu River's Islet, old Shaman Char practices a forbidden ritual, crafting a heavenly spirit charm from a 100-day-old fetus. Surrounded by graves and dense jungle, his secret hut hides chilling incantations and supernatural phenomena. As ghostly cries and spectral visions haunt his rites, a battle brews with a Cham shaman determined to stop him. A tale of dark magic, vengeance, and a cursed wedding unfolds. Will Char's power prevail, or will his sins unravel? Dive into this haunting saga. After removing a fetus approximately 100 days old from the mother's womb, the old Shaman Char used certain types of forest roots, prepared according to a secret formula, dried, processed, and placed inside a transparent glass jar. He set up a spiritual altar right on the small river islet where several bodies were buried. A small wooden hut was erected near the graves. Though modest in size, the hut was sturdy and always kept locked, since it was located on a small islet in the middle of the Hậu River. The area was almost entirely devoid of passersby. Moreover, the surrounding area was overgrown with water coconut trees and dense vegetation, making the shaman's small hut virtually undetectable. The spiritual altar was placed on a wooden table at waist height. On it, the shaman arranged the sacred relics of his sect. A pair of 7-star swords crafted from the wood of a centuries-old mulberry tree. A peanut oil lamp burned day and night. Additionally, there were several oddly shaped objects, likely belonging to his sect. In front of the incense burner, he placed the glass jar containing the carefully treated fetus. Flowers, incense, fruits, paper money, and stacks of yellow, white, and red talismans, along with children's toys and baby clothes, were scattered across the altar. Every day, at the hour of the rat, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., and the hour of the rooster, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., the shaman quietly rowed a small 3-plank boat to the islet to perform his rituals. On the graves of the mothers of the fetuses, he planted numerous marigold plants, their vibrant yellow flowers blooming brilliantly. This was the dry season, so the shaman did not have to worry about thunderstorms during his practice, a critical taboo when cultivating the heavenly spirit charm. As lightning could strike and kill him instantly, the cultivation of the heavenly spirit charm also required proximity to flowing water, which is why the shaman chose this islet in the Hậu River, a location he was particularly pleased with. Another aspect he appreciated was the dense, overgrown vegetation, with no human footprints for ages. The area was steeped in yin energy, and sunlight barely reached the roof of his hut. At the appointed hour for practice, the shaman lit incense on the altar and chanted ancient, eerie incantations. The melodies were mournful, sometimes anguished and sorrowful, other times sweet and coaxing. As if lulling a child, he called upon the tiny spirit in the glass jar to assist him, making all sorts of promises to the spirit. After the ritual, he visited the graves of the mothers, lighting incense and making further vows. He also meticulously tended to the marigold plants on the graves, ensuring they thrived. These marigolds were crucial, as their condition would indicate the progress of his cultivation. Time passed slowly. The shaman continued his daily rituals, regularly replacing the offerings and chanting incantations to persuade and appease the spirit. This was an extremely dangerous period for the shaman's life, as it was now intertwined with the dark magic he was practicing. By the end of the 3rd month, strange phenomena began to occur. While chanting, eerie sounds filled the air, sometimes like a child's cry, sometimes ghostly laughter, or sudden clattering noises from the glass jar, as if someone were walking in wooden clogs. The strange occurrences grew more frequent. Ghostly laughter, mournful sighs, and accusatory whispers from vengeful spirits echoed clearly in the shaman's mind. Even when he was outside the hut, the eyes of the practitioner of this dark art glowed red like burning coals, as he exerted immense inner strength to suppress his fear. Any lapse in courage could allow the vengeful fetus to seize his soul, driving him to madness or eternal damnation. Each day and hour was a monumental effort for the practitioner. By the time the 3rd month passed, the critical phase that determined success or failure arrived. The heavenly spirit fetus, through the rituals and incantations, had absorbed enough yin and yang energy to no longer fear light. It could now open the jar's lid and sit atop it, sometimes letting out shrill laughter, jumping down to tickle the shaman, or transforming into a ghostly face as large as a tray, glowing green like phosphorescence, startling him, whether the shaman kept his eyes open or closed during the rituals. As long as his focus remained steadfast and he followed the secret methods, the heavenly spirit fetus could not harm him. Though renowned for his courage, the shaman sometimes found the spirit's antics overwhelming. For instance, it might dangle its legs in front of him before gradually revealing its body, arms, and head. In such moments, he had to wield the 7-star mulberry wood swords to subdue the spirit. However, he knew that overusing the swords, talismans, or magical herbs would make the spirit grow defiant and fearless. Thus, he limited their use, focusing instead on chanting incessantly and maintaining unwavering resolve. Knowing this was the key to victory, over-reliance on tools like talismans, herbs, or swords could backfire later, if a stronger opponent appeared or offered greater inducements. The heavenly spirit might betray and kill him instantly. Time dragged on slowly, and when 100 days were complete, the cultivation of the heavenly spirit was finished. At this point, the heavenly spirit resembled an obedient boy, kneeling at its father's feet and following his commands. The shaman held a grand ceremony to name the spirit, forcing it to swear absolute loyalty to the sect's ancestors and himself. By now, the fetus had shriveled to a piece the size of a matchbox. The shaman placed it in a cloth pouch and wore it around his neck. Immediately afterward, he set fire to the altar and the hut, ensuring the heavenly spirit had no place to return. From then on, man and spirit were united, traveling together. Afterward, the practitioner performed a final ritual at the grave of the unfortunate mother, offering prayers and scattering the marigolds he had planted into the Hậu River while chanting. If all the flowers floated downstream and sank, it signified that the mother's soul had been released and reincarnated elsewhere. However, if any flower floated upstream, it meant the mother's soul still lingered, attached to her child. In such cases, the practitioner had to immediately conduct a soul-calling ceremony, bringing her spirit home to be venerated with regular offerings. Those who cultivated the heavenly spirit could never marry, as the spirit, perhaps out of jealousy on behalf of its mother, would break their neck or cause them to vomit blood and die instantly. Once a shaman possessed a heavenly spirit, he became renowned. The spirit would report everything to him, predicting success or failure, profit or loss. People often saw the shaman lying in a hammock, muttering to himself, as if talking alone, but he was conversing with the heavenly spirit. Knowing this, the Cham shaman from Tay Ninh patiently gathered evidence to bring the old shaman Cha to justice. Without proof, no one would believe him. He didn't have to wait long. The region buzzed with news that the shaman Cha had proposed to marry the daughter of a wealthy landowner. The girl, only 18, with long hair, fair skin, and a slender figure, always dressed in bright-colored traditional oro bar, was the object of affection for many young men and notables in the area. When news spread of the shaman's formal proposal, the girl's family was terrified, and the young men in the region were furious. Several times, they planned to burn down the shaman's house or kill him. However, all their schemes failed miserably. Those who set out to burn his house inexplicably lost their way in their own village, some ending up trapped in thorny bamboo groves until morning, needing rescue. Those plotting to harm him suffered consecutive accidents, leaving him too preoccupied to carry out the plans. The entire region fell into a tense silence. People grew wary of going out after dark, especially after 3 villagers were bitten and killed by king cobras on the main road. In this atmosphere, the Cham shaman from Tay Ninh resolved to monitor the old shaman Cha's every move and act discreetly. A trap, like an inescapable net, was set to capture the bloodthirsty demon. Despite the bride's family's efforts to delay, the shaman Cha's powerful magic eventually forced the wedding day to arrive. Lan, the landowner's daughter, with no other recourse and her tears long dried, resigned herself to her fate. From early morning, hundreds of round tables were set up, stretching from inside the house to tents in the yard, reaching the cool shade of milkfruit, sapodilla, and mango trees. Both families were wealthy and influential, and since this was the last time to send off the beloved daughter, whose fate was uncertain, the landowner spared no expense to make the event grand. A live band from the city filled the quiet countryside with music, drums, and singing. Dozens of cows, pigs, and hundreds of chickens and ducks were slaughtered for the feast. A decorative arch made of water coconut leaves and flowers, adorned with a wedding sign and 2 doves pecking each other, stood proudly. By the river, 3 large boats, decked with lights and flowers, were prepared. Though the 2 families lived just over a kilometer apart, the Shaman Char hired the boats to parade the bride through the region, showcasing his wealth. Guests gathered, ate, drank, and laughed loudly. Mats were spread on the ground for people to continue gambling after eating, a rural tradition where no wedding was complete without card games. Even the poorest families in the village would borrow money to join the feast and gamble. The drinking went on from morning to late night, with one group replacing another. As one table cleared, new ones were quickly set up. Rice wine flowed like the Hậu River. People drank, sang, passed out, and slept wherever they fell, sometimes next to pigsties, snoring loudly. The Shaman Char demonstrated an extraordinary tolerance for alcohol, leading his bride to toast at each table. He downed a full glass at every stop, yet dozens of glasses seemed to turn to water in his body. At the appointed time, he called everyone to board the boats to fetch the bride. On the boats, food was laid out abundantly. Guests ate, drank, sang, and laughed, seemingly oblivious to the looming danger. At a table near the back of the boat, in a secluded corner, the Cham shaman from Tay Ninh sat quietly, sipping wine and smoking, unaffected by the wedding's revelry. The night before Lan's wedding, a secret meeting had taken place at the landowner's house, involving the Cham shaman, the landowner, and Lan. They meticulously planned for Lan's time at the Shaman Char's house. The Cham shaman knew that with the powers of the heavenly spirit, the old Shaman Char was forewarned of nearly everything and had taken precautions. Moreover, Char's mastery of advanced mystical practices like Chakra, the 5 lords, and secret Indian rituals made it difficult to deceive him. But as the saying goes, thick rinds meet sharp nails. The ancient Cham mystical arts, passed down for millennia, were equally formidable, and the Cham shaman was their heir. At the end of the meeting, the Cham shaman handed Lan a small package and whispered instructions: do this, and that. Time flew by, and the fetus in Lan's womb was over 3 months old. The dreaded moment was approaching. Each day, the Shaman Char secretly visited the islet on the Hậu River to prepare a new ritual site. Sometimes, he disappeared for days, returning with bundles of herbs resembling Chinese medicine. Lately, he had been unusually attentive to Lan, caring for her every need. To outsiders, their marriage seemed blissful. He brought her the finest foods, showered her with clothes, fabrics, and jewelry. During this time, he repeatedly asked Lan, "Let me raise this child, dear." Lan would smile and reply, "It's my child. When it grows up, I'll let you teach it to follow in your trade." A fleeting shadow of displeasure crossed his face, like a dark cloud, but it quickly vanished. The 99th day of Lan's pregnancy arrived. That morning, her family rushed to report that her mother was gravely ill, unconscious at home. Though visibly annoyed, the Shaman Char allowed Lan to visit her mother, insisting she return by evening. That day, Char secluded himself in his ritual chamber, lighting incense and chanting incessantly. For reasons unknown, Lan, who was eating with her parents, suddenly knocked over her bowl and insisted on returning to her husband's house. The landowner quickly sent word to the Cham shaman, who was staying nearby. Almost immediately, the shaman arrived. Stakes, chest high, were driven into the ground in a peculiar pattern throughout the garden. Dozens of kilograms of garlic and tobacco were ground, mixed with water, and sprinkled everywhere, from the house to the edge of the sapodilla garden. Cinnabar, sulfur, and coarse salt were finely ground and scattered across the area. Along the stakes, fishing nets, 1/2 meter wide with thick cords, were strung. A ritual platform was erected in front of the house, gleaming with steel knives, century-old mulberry wood swords, triangular flags, and baskets of yellow, white, and red talismans. A clay oven, built from Cham bricks, was lit in front of the platform, its smoke thick with agarwood, sandalwood, and forest leaves, creating a distinctive aroma. Lan was bound hand and foot with wooden shackles and placed on a polished black rosewood bench. As time passed, she thrashed and screamed violently. Despite the restraints, she cursed those who bound her, sparing no one, not even her parents or siblings. Around the rosewood bench, the Cham shaman had strung several layers of heavy offshore fishing nets, adorned with Cham talismans bearing mysterious symbols. As evening fell, Lan's outbursts grew fiercer. She screamed and cursed tirelessly. Despite her frail frame, since the afternoon, the Cham shaman had been boiling a large cauldron filled with forest leaves he had prepared. The liquid turned black and viscous, like tar, emitting a pungent, acrid smell that even the incense couldn't mask. The household, along with a dozen village youths who came to help, were briefed and assigned tasks by the Cham shaman. They ate early to prepare for unexpected developments. Around 9 p.m., a cold gust of wind swept through, carrying a nauseating, fishy stench. From the darkness, war drums resounded, accompanied by rustling, shrieking, and the moans, sighs, and wails of countless beings. It was as if a torrent was rushing toward the landowner's house. The Cham shaman swiftly took his place at the platform, and 8 young men armed with machetes formed an octagonal formation around it. Suddenly, a terrifying roar erupted, followed by a wave of foul, acrid odor. In the torchlight, a pair of golden snakes with fiery red crests slithered forward. Thousands of snakes, king cobras, kraits, and vipers swarmed around, all heading toward the Cham shaman's platform. Unfazed, the Cham shaman waved a red signal flag, directing the 8 men in the 8 trigrams formation to shift positions. The formation transitioned from the celestial 8 trigrams to the terrestrial, with the gate of death facing the onslaught of creatures. The formation now resembled a trap, funneling the enemies toward the gate of death. As the divine snakes approached, they encountered the fumes of tobacco and garlic, rearing up and hissing louder than a kite whistle. They wreathed in the air, illuminated by torchlight, creating a horrifying spectacle. The smaller snakes following them were ensnared in the slack nets, tangling further as they struggled, or collapsed from the garlic and tobacco fumes, piling up within the netted perimeter. The war drums of the shaman char grew louder, punctuated by mournful gongs. The divine snakes dove down, exhaling a black, foul-smelling mist. The men in the 8 trigrams formation staggered, and the formation's flags were torn skyward, scattering. Seeing this, the Cham shaman ordered those by the boiling cauldron to pour in a prepared powder. A thick brown smoke billowed, enveloping the divine snakes. Instantly, they fell to the ground and slithered away. This was an ancient Cham snake-catching remedy, developed millennia ago when the Cham lived in snake-infested mountainous regions. With the divine snakes gone and the smoke dissipating, thousands of dead snakes littered the battlefield. The shaman char shifted tactics. The war drums adopted a new, thunderous rhythm, evoking the sound of thousands of war chariots advancing toward the platform. The air grew dense and suffocating. From the sky, hundreds of black crows swooped toward the platform, weaving through the air and attacking the men in the 8 trigrams formation, tearing at their flesh, forming a hand seal and chanting. The Cham shaman tossed a handful of golden talismans skyward. The crows fell in droves, revealing themselves as folded black paper. The drums and gongs intensified, their sound piercing the air, constricting the space. One by one, the men in the 8 trigrams formation collapsed, blood trickling from their mouths. The formation was broken. At that moment, 5 women in white oro dye glided forward on the wind. Their movement was eerie, not walking but floating over bushes and grass. Surrounding them was a swarm of countless bats, converging on the Cham shaman's platform. From afar, the shaman Cha's voice chanted clearly, homage to Master Lo Ban, Ancestor Lo Ban, Forefather Lo Ban, witness me, disciple of Ho Chu, Sun Wood Lo Ban talisman. Slay, command the heavenly spirit to obey. Divine archers lend your might, triple kill divine banner, human kill. Wealth kill, object kill, triple kill divine banner, urgent. As per the law, from the platform, the Cham shaman spat a mouthful of blood, staggering as if about to collapse. With all his strength, he stood, brandished the 7-star sword, threw a handful of talismans skyward, and chanted loudly, Om Ji Lam, Bu Lam, Fen Cha, Mu Dai Yi, Ta Po Ha, turn the wheel king. Seal the 5 directions, capture divine immortals descending, holding the threefold fire. Unable to hold back, he chanted a spell to nullify all of Cha's magic, preventing further chaos. After chanting 21 rounds, Cha's distant incantations abruptly ceased. The 5 corpses rotted instantly, oozing yellow fluid and collapsing before the platform. The toothed bats lay dead in heaps around it, with his magic stripped and incantations rendered powerless. The shaman Cha vomited blood and fainted in his ritual chamber. From then on, he could no longer wreak havoc, ensuring at least a decade of peace. That night, the Cham shaman ordered the battlefield cleared, disposing of the animal carcasses in the Hậu River and reburying the 5 corpses on the islet. A large motorized boat carried him and Lan toward Tay Ninh. Master Bei calmly said, "The story I've told you happened over a decade ago." After that battle, the shaman Cha vanished. The Cham shaman took Lan to the foot of Khao Mountain, near Dai Tieng Lake, to give birth. Sadly, Lan delivered a premature boy. Weakened by Cha's toxins and the harsh forest life, she passed away a few months later. The Cham shaman, ironically, became a single father to his enemy's child, a cruel twist of fate. That boy, the son of Lan and Cha, was the one killed recently. What happened that day was a continuation of events from over a decade ago. Fate is cruel. The father unknowingly killed his son. What use is powerful magic if it leads to this? Endless cycles of vengeance. When will they end? Perhaps the loss of his son led to today's third showdown between the Cham shaman and Cha. Now, prepare the car to take me to Tay Ninh General Hospital to visit him and learn what happened. I quickly said, "Master, I'll drive you for speed." Soon, Master Bei, his wife, myself, and 2 trusted disciples piled into a short jeep and sped toward Tay Ninh General Hospital. We arrived at the emergency ward and learned from the doctors that the Cham shaman was in surgery to amputate his arm. Despite their efforts, they couldn't save it. For unknown reasons, the severed arm necrotized rapidly. Fortunately, they stopped the bleeding in time, or he might have joined his ancestors. An hour later, a stretcher with 4 wheels rolled out of the operating room, covered in a white sheet with only his pale face exposed. The Cham shaman, sedated, was taken to recovery. His frail appearance moved us all. With only one arm, he could no longer perform martial arts. A mighty eagle with broken wings, a once towering, resonant martial master now lay diminished. Overwhelmed with pity, we couldn't hold back tears. Grief, we greet you. Master Bei assigned us to care for the Cham shaman and told me to drive him on an errand. I took him to Sa Moor Market. There, he told me to wait and disappeared into the market. 30 minutes later, he returned with a large backpack. He neatly packed his purchases, filling the bag tightly. Curious, I noticed his odd haul. Besides his ever-present leaf-shaped dagger, he had bought a gleaming machete, instant noodles, rice crackers, tobacco, garlic, a hammock, mosquito netting, and green barter shoes. Once ready, he urged me to drive him to the Sa Moor border gate, between Tay Ninh and Cambodia's Mimo district. Mimo, adjacent to Vietnam's Tan Bien district via Sa Moor, was a dense, jungle-covered area where the Southern Command, known as R, was stationed during the war. The region was littered with wartime bombs and mines, claiming many lives and livestock. Our company planned to transform SA Moore into a vast rubber plantation, extending to Mammoth's rubber estate. But the challenges were immense, costing money and blood. Though called a border market, SA Moore had only a few ramshackle stalls selling essentials. It was a hub for smuggled tobacco, with brands like Hero, Jet, 555, and Upsara. Mimo was known for its golden tobacco. The area was a mix of Vietnamese and Khmer, using both Vietnamese dong and Cambodian reel, and speaking both languages. The market also attracted smugglers and gangsters crossing the border through forest paths to Cambodia and Thailand. At a trail locals called the Small Path, Master Bay got out, saying, "Go back to the office. I'll return in a few days. Check on the Cham shaman at the hospital." Shouldering his backpack, he headed toward Mimo. As dusk fell, his figure vanished into the green Mimo forest.